Hello and welcome once again to All for United. No, don't change your television sets. I have just had a shave. That's all it is. It's not a brand new person to worry about. Like to do it every once a couple of months. It's a good idea, just in case. So there we go. Good to have you with us. And as you can see, we have got a wonderful panel once again. Dan has joined us 2 shows in 2 days. What a time to be alive this is. And speaking of number 2, we have got below us the 2 Johnnies. So brilliant to have them here as well. So it's hello from me and hello from you.
Hello all.
Hello all. Hi there.
The end. Got there in the end.
My condolences to everyone that they have to put with me again. So,
well, there we go. That's an in-joke. I don't really know what that means, based on the fact I wasn't there on Tuesday. But if you were, I think you know who that's at. So let's get started, shall we? I've started today's show with the title, Is McTominay currently our best player? And we're going to kind of come to that in a bit, because I feel like it's quite a redemption story as such, but just find it very interesting as how this has all sort of culminated. We were starting with the likes of Maguire and McTominay being the ones that were being pointed out last season as the ones we need to get rid of, whereas then actually currently at the moment they're probably the 2 knights in shining armour that are stopping our wheels from rolling off entirely off the season. But we shall see. It's a question. It's not necessarily an opinion. So don't be coming in here swinging your battle axes at me saying, how can you think McTominay's the best player we've got? Rah, rah, rah. It's a discussion programme. That's the whole point. So get yourself in the comments and we look forward to hearing from you. But whilst we're on it, let's start with the Chelsea game, shall we? Just initial thoughts. Dan, how did you feel about that?
Perfect response, to be honest. I thought the lads were spot on, 1 to 11. There was a load of questions flying around after, and it's not I didn't want to answer them. I just thought the credit should have gone to everybody and not just one set player. Like, there's a couple of players in there that I thought were fantastic on the day, in particular. But I just thought, to keep it short so we don't go on to too many subjects too quickly, I thought it was a fantastic response from everybody. I think Ten Hag got it right. Rashford should have been dropped. That's as far as I'd like to go on the Rashford topic. It's frustrated me this week seeing social media. Like, Rashford's in the kind of form that should see him dropped. He's not in the kind of form that should see him shipped off to PSG for 100 million because he's never good enough to kick the football again for Manchester United. It's a ridiculous notion to go at straight away. And as you said, with Maguire and McTominay, there's plenty of time for a revival from Rashford in particular. I was a bit concerned with the lineup when I saw it, with Maguire on the right, Lindelof in. And I did originally tweet my disappointment, and then I read somewhere that Varane was injured. So I deleted it, to be fair. But if he's got to play that, he's got to play that. He's got no choice. It's interesting to see what's going on with Varane, but that was my only concern. I get people differ of opinion on Wan-Bissaka Dalot. I don't think the difference is that much. I think Wan-Bissaka's in better form at the moment, but I think they're both capable of starting. It's just whoever's in better form in Ten Hag's eyes. But yeah, I thought it was the perfect response.
Seems perfectly reasonable to me. Hello, NT, as well. Nice to see you. John Commode, you were not at the game, unlike the other John, due to the fact that it's a slightly long trip for you to get there nowadays. But we mentioned Rashford already. That was the thing that screamed out from me when I saw the starting lineup and I looked at it. Garnacho starting, obviously Højlund still up front, with Anthony out on the right, Bruno just behind. Did you feel that Ten Hag made the right decision? Not just in hindsight, did you look at that and go, yeah, I think that's the right thing to happen? Or are you just, 2020 vision now that hindsight's with us? What do you reckon?
I thought it was the right decision to drop Rashford and Martial. I think we all spoke on the show on Tuesday saying that Rashford had to be dropped. He had a week off. before the Newcastle game. He was taken off after an hour, and it was a tough trip for a lot of the players. You know, playing three away games of that magnitude in a week was always going to have an impact. But for me, it was the right decision. I also think that Anthony has done reasonably okay. He did well in Galatasaray. He did well when he came on against Newcastle. And I thought last night, while he's not getting the goals and the assists, which we obviously need him to develop and obviously start doing that. But for me, his overall performance, and you think, I'm sure we'll go into detail how we approach the game. I think the way we pressed Chelsea was very good last night, and we were on the front foot for much of that game. And I think Anthony, as well as Hoyland, was a fundamental reason for that. I think as much as Anthony gets a lot of criticism, and that I do think he does have his uses at times. I think that's one thing that he does well. He does press well, and he does support his fullback. And I just think with Rashford, and I think I'll go into more details as show goes on. I think we've obviously got this winning run in terms of like we've won 6 out of 8 in the league, which is obviously very good. I personally think that the team is starting to click. And I personally look at that Newcastle game, as bad as a performance it was. I think it's a bit of an outlier from what I'm seeing in terms of like we are actually starting to play well in games. And that was the odd game where we didn't play well. Obviously, we need to improve our away record, but I think we're starting to click as a team. It showed that I think if you're looking at XG, it's the second best in the league this season, which was Chelsea away at Tottenham, but they were up against 9 players who were playing a high line. So you got to factor that in, that it's highest XG against the team against 11 players. So we were very dominant for much that game. And I think that Ten Hag, I think you went back to basics, somehow pick a team to win a game. Your best team to win a game. And I think that's probably the best team to go with at the moment. I thought Amrabat had his best game in a United shirt, and Garnacho is starting to impact games from when he starts now. And I think as a team, we're starting to develop that with game players who haven't had a great start to the season, but they're starting to get into form. And whereas Rashford, while he did score a penalty at Everton, he needs to do better, and I think even he would understand that. But for me, it's positive. We're doing well in the league overall at the moment, and I just hope that it continues. But it was a positive thing that Ten Hag did yesterday.
Yeah, fair points. I mean, John, you were there, and obviously must have been delighted to see the 3 points at last. But sort of a couple of things that are being said here in the comments. Dave saying that you think we played well last night, not getting carried away. It's another team that's below us. Bournemouth this weekend, and the test will be Liverpool next weekend. But I think MT sort of put it where I was at the end of the game, which is not that we can't be complimentary on the performance, because we can. You know, if you have a good game, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying it's a good game. But I get where he's coming from here, which is that we've had too many, like John says, when we turn the corner there, maybe we're starting to click. But there's been a lot of those false storms, a lot of those moments where we've gone, up there we go, right, now we're turning the corner, and actually you just get smashed straight in the face with a little custard pie, and it's back to where you were going before. What did you make of it? Do you sort of subscribe to what Johnny K says there, that it's a bit more of a sort of a turning of the corner, or do you agree with MT really, and sort of myself, that we are going to need to see a few more performances like that before we can start getting too excited?
I think with the recent performances, you know, when we're playing against, you know, teams in the bottom half or outside, you know, teams outside the top 6, you know, we most of the time we look pretty convincing. it's just, when we come up against one of these, when we've come up against any of the sort of top 6 teams, it all seems to unravel a bit, and there seems to be like a bit of a gulf in performances when we come up against one of those. I was certainly encouraged, by the performance last night. We created a lot, should have scored a lot more. We pressed a lot higher and a lot more intensely than we have done for quite a long time, I think, as well. I think it's we've got to start putting in these kind of performances in some of the big games, and particularly in the bigger away games, which of course we've got one coming up next weekend. But obviously there's two more big games before then.
I mean, you were, again, as we say there, and you spot on what you're saying. But the question I kind of wanted to come to next with that for you is, you have obviously been there, you've seen the atmosphere. Inside the ground, is it still remaining 100% behind the team, behind Ten Hag? What's the general sort of feeling on the terraces at the moment?
Yeah, there was certainly a lot of support for Ten Hag last night. You could probably hear the Ten Hag's Red Army chant was, that was in full flow throughout most of the game. Even Rashford, when he came on, they was singing his song as well. So yeah, it seemed as though last night everybody was well behind the manager still, and the team as well, it sounded like.
Just confirm, that's when Rashford was coming on, that the fans were singing the Rashford song, not that as Rashford was coming on, he's singing Eric Ten Hag's Red and White Army.
No.
I would absolutely pay to see that. I'll be amazing. Just imagine that as the substitution board comes up, there's Rashford on Eric Ten Hag's Red and White Army. Would be amazing. Imagine it.
Yeah, that would be nice, that.
Honestly, that would absolutely be brilliant. NT says it was a mixed reaction to Rashford. Maybe so. Again, world of opinions, wouldn't it? Just wouldn't. Honestly, I would giggle. I'd actually giggle if the players were doing that as they came on. But that was the picture painted in my mind as John was speaking there, and I was like a little child at Christmas. I'm like, oh, that would be amazing. What a thing that would be. But there we go. Listen, it's in the title. Let's get to it. It's the big one. Is Scott McTominay currently our best player? Now, it's a very interesting situation because Bruno Fernandes had a penalty. Good save from the goalkeeper. It was down low, to be fair, and a reasonably decent height and reach for him to be able to get to. But penalty saves, and that's cost Bruno, because Mr. McTominay stepped up, nicked in one, and then nicked in a second one. And as a result, he's now our top goal scorer in the club at the moment with the 6 goals, with Bruno just behind on 5, and probably regretting missing that penalty. And I've just looking through some of the statistics. You can make statistics mean anything you want, really, and Dan certainly has a good go at making that happen as well. But I think what would be interesting in this one is that when you look at points per game when people have played, Daniel Gore's obviously the best one with 3 points because he's only played once and we won that one game, so we can't really count that. But we're actually on 2 points a game with Rafael Varane in the 12 games that he's been in. Johnny Evans, we're on 2 points a game. Jadon Sancho, even 2 points a game, but again, he's only played 3, so I can't really count that. But the next player after that, Scott McTominay, with 1.94, so roughly sort of 2 again. After that, it really starts to jump down, 1.7s, 1.6, 1.5s. And the point that I'm getting at with that is that when you're in a situation, Dan, where you're looking at these points per game and you're seeing that, the world's been quite harsh to Scott McTominay, who currently is one of the top goal scorers in the Euros in the qualifying, as well as here as well. So I don't think any of us would have been betting this time last year that Scott McTominay would be leading the scoring charts for Scotland and Manchester United. But here's the world that we live in right now. But upon also doing that, we're also in that situation where, as he said, Harry Maguire stepped in and done really well as well. Do you think that McTominay's having a bit of a renaissance, a bit of a resurgence, and that maybe a bit more respect should be put on his name? Or is he just literally a case of, as some people would say, an average player? And it just shows how far the rest of the team are dropping, that he's the standout, as people used to say about Fellaini, who I also really liked.
No, I think that he's at his level in terms of his performances are always the same. They don't really change. He's always, anybody that's watched him has always thought he's got an eye for goal. He could score more goals, etc. But he's always played the same. He's always give the same commitment, the same effort. And you don't get trusted by 4 different managers over periods like this if you're not a player that's good enough to play for Man United. They would surely, one of the managers would have said, enough's enough, we don't need him. And I get that Ten Hag sort of said in the summer, this player's available, we could get 40 million for him. But was that down to McTominay not being good enough? Or was that more down to the club are desperate for money so they can spend elsewhere? And McTominay's a perfect example of 40 million would go straight back into the club because of, we do need to do that more. It would go straight back into, obviously, he's homegrown, etc. I rate McTominay. He won't get any better. He won't get any worse. He's 27. He'll keep doing what he's doing. He's good enough to be at Manchester United. The issue is he's not good enough. He shouldn't be good enough to start for Manchester United. But I always go back to the same problems. The players that are letting us down long term, it's not your Maguire and your McTominays, it's other players. I've said it from the start of this season. There's certain players that you can ask to do a system and they'll do it. And there's certain players that you'll ask to do a system and they'll refuse to do it. McTominay will do it. Maguire will do it. Other players will do it. We need everybody to be on side. I like McTominay. We had a discussion the other day, like we probably should have kept Fred over McTominay, which I still think is a fair shout, even though he's done well for us this season. And we was just discussing like how many points has he actually won us this season. It's quite a few now. So I've got no problem with McTominay. I think between him and Maguire, they're the most 2 important players at the minute, probably the first 2 on the team sheet. I don't think that's going to change in a hurry. I think he's going to try and facilitate McTominay going forward because of the type of goals that he can score. Let's be honest, we should have scored 6 or 7 against Chelsea. It really should have been a lot more.
We should have. I mean, he's been just in the right place at the right time a ridiculous number of times. And again, he could have had another goal. I saw that, you know, he sort of hit the goalkeeper.
Took it on his, again. Yeah.
You know,
he had another one where he shot on his left.
I think the free header was, he should have buried that one.
Yeah.
So, but
Andrew. But yeah, absolutely. So I think, I mean, I'd like to point out a lot of people saying we should have kept Fred over. I say a lot of people. I've had Dan say maybe we should have kept Fred over.
John said it. I just agreed.
Okay, that's same thing, mate. Agreement is as good as a statement. But I've always been, I'm proud of myself for saying this, I've always been complimentary of Scott McTominay because of the effort. And I don't know, maybe John will call it old-fashioned, as he was mentioning before about the stand names backstage. But for me, effort to me is what I want to see. I can handle losing football matches. Remember, we're a football club that went 26 years without winning the league. We managed that, but we still love the team. And the reason why we love the team was because we saw effort. When we saw effort, we're happy. And I think that's always the big thing, is that you can handle a player not necessarily performing top of the tree every single time, as long as you're seeing the effort. This is the problem that people like Rashford and Martial suffer from so often, is that when they're bad, it doesn't look like there's any effort. And the one thing you can never say, Johnny K, about Scott McTominay, I thought, oh, the rhymes on me right now are just sick. Can you put into words how good Scott McTominay's been so far this season? Because he has just constantly put that effort in, no matter what goes on. And that's surely got to get him some credit with us United fans, hasn't it?
Yeah, without question. And I don't think his fight and his passion is questionable. He cares for this team. He loves playing for United, and he's always been capable of getting a goal or two for us. And I mean, I said on Tuesday that aside from scoring goals, what does he offer? And I don't mean that in a way that um in a negative sense, in terms of like he is capable of scoring goals for us and winning games for us. That's without question. He's proven that this season. The Brentford game, the obviously the game last night, he got a goal in Galatasaray and Sheffield United as well. So he's on 6 goals this season. I personally think that I set the challenge for him that sorry, that's my phone going off. But but basically, what I said was that he doesn't do as much in the midfield as he ought to, in my opinion, because I don't think he's capable. I grew up watching Paul Scholes who could control the midfield. I don't think he's that level of player, and I think at times in the midfield the game can pass him by, and I do still believe that. However, he does have an instinct for goal, and he showed last night that he's got a calmness in front of goal to take the ball down and put it in. The first goal was brilliant. The game against Brentford, like the equaliser he scored, he took it down and a good finish. Like we had so many chances last night. He was the only one who kept cool head, so he's definitely a threat in front of goal. And I did say him a challenge with his finishing ability. I look at him, think he should be reaching double figures for United every season because he's a very good finisher. He's probably one of our best finishers. He's one of the few players, if the ball drops to him in the area, I feel confident he can put it in the net. He's one of the few people that I would trust to do that. And he did show that last night. I did say I would have sold him over Fred, but that was in terms of like Fred can do a job in the midfield in terms of like certain games and certain big games. Fred can mark players out the game and that. And obviously he was unpredictable, but at times he could do a job in the midfield. And plus McTominay, I think his value being British would be worth more. And obviously we've got FFP issues. That's why I thought it would be best to sell him on. So that's the reason I did it. Not because I didn't think he wasn't a good footballer, because he does have his use. And I've always said that about McTominay. I do like him and he's a good and he showed last night that he is capable of winning a game for us. I just think with McTominay, he can't score in every game. So what does he do aside from score goals? That's the only criticism I have of him in the midfield. At times the game does pass him by. But where I would say last night was I did notice him, aside from the 2 goals he scored and the chances he had, I did notice he did get on the ball a bit more. Okay, it wasn't perfect, but I did notice him ask for the ball, get in positions to receive the ball, to progress forward. So overall, it wasn't just because of the 2 goals. I did think he had a good game overall, regardless of the 2 goals he scored. So he certainly cares. And if you compare it to someone like Rashford, for example, without question, Rashford has a lot more talent than what he does. But at times you can question Rashford's commitment, and we've questioned it this season. Whereas with McTominay, his passion, his commitment is never in question. He always tries his hardest. Just at times, the game can pass him by midfield, and I don't mean that as a criticism. I just mean it from what you see. But he's without question a very good squad player to have. He certainly cares about the club. I do like him, and he's capable of winning a game for us like last night. But overall, fair play to him. He won us the game, and this season, whether he's our best player at the moment, well, Harry Maguire will have something to say about that personally. winning player of the month. But overall, he has been very good. He scores important goals. I think it says more about the overall team that he's our top scorer, because I think that shows that our forwards haven't been there doing their jobs at times this season. But fair play to him. He's on 6 goals, and hopefully the challenge I personally set him, hopefully he'll get a few more this season, get into double figures.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. Talking tennis is on here. Obviously, he's come up with some great points. He's mentioned about McTominay reminding him of Rob Lee, which I think is quite a nice little touch there. That's very good indeed. They both mentioned, both Dave and Talking Tennis, of course, that Scott used to be a striker when
That
he was
is a
younger.
myth.
Beg pardon?
That is a myth. It's been
It's a myth.
debunked. So he didn't actually play up front for the youth team. He covered for like 4 games because there was a shortage and basically he was tall. But he's been midfield since he was like 11.
Well, there you go. That's told everybody there. So there we go. He also mentioned about the performances being very good at the moment. Maybe not winning in Europe, but the performances at Galatasaray and Copenhagen were quite good. This is an interesting point from Dave. We sit here moaning about how bad or good we are. We're only 3 points behind the last season's champion, City. How has that happened? Listen, whilst I agree with you, and I'm always a big fan of trying to big up the squad, we've also got to sit there and realise that yes, we are even 3 points behind them. We're still something like 7 or 8 or 9 points at the moment. So it's wonderful to be just behind them, but by the same token, they're just having a dodgy moment at the minute. NT very happy for Scott, but I think goes along with what Dan was saying, which is that he shouldn't really be starting or even third choice for Manchester United. I think I see there's a little bit of Carrick in him, maybe not in terms of the delivery and the ball, but like you said, in progressing it forward, playing the simple things and perhaps being just a little bit underestimated in that respect. Talking Tennis also just opened a bottle of red, so John Kay would be proud. Let's hope so. What else has been put? Can't argue with his commitment. I think the same goes for Dallo. Both seems like very good professionals. Don't think either are good enough for us long term. You need these squad players. I don't know. That's kind of where we are. And yeah, the goal difference, at least we are not on a minus anymore, which still blows my mind that was even the case in the first place. To be honest, here we go. He hides too much, I think. I don't think we can say that McTominay hides. I don't believe that.
I don't think his best position centre midfield. I think that's an issue. I raised it a few times, to be fair. It's the old square peg round holes. McTominay is not a centre midfielder, he's not a CDM. He's a midfielder that likes to break into the box and sort of hang off the striker. And you're putting him there and he's scoring 6 goals in 10 or 6 goals in 8 or whatever it is. That's his position. So if you're then going to drag him back to a CDM because it suits, he's not going to play well there. It's just not going to work for him. Same as sticking Rashford on the right, and it's the same as, I'm sure if we put Garnacho on the right, he wouldn't have as much fun as he does on the left. I think that's one of the most important things I took away from yesterday was play players where they should play, and then we get a better performance from them all. And someone made a point on X or Twitter, or whatever it's called these days, and it was something like Gareth Bale played left back, he played left wing, he played centre forward. Great players can play in great positions. That's not football anymore. Football is so tactical now. It's gone away from players. Gareth Bale, when he played left back, didn't play left back, did he? He played left wing, and someone else covered for him because he could do whatever he wanted. And now the
argument is, though, did we play better in the second half when Luke Shaw was centre half? Though,
yeah, but I mean, me personally, it's just my opinion. I think Lindelof's been awful this season. I think he's been absolutely awful. If Maguire would have played like Lindelof has played this season, there'd be a lot more thrown in his direction. He just doesn't seem on it when he's played. I think we did play better, but I do think we still lose too much when Shaw's not left back. This is why I would have played Maguire Varane, but Maguire on the left. But Ten Hag doesn't do the left footer thing, so it'd be interesting.
Well, it'd be very interesting to see. Again, just going back to what NT said, he thinks he hides too much and that he doesn't show with the ball when he plays in the centre. Not entirely his fault, but look how much even someone like Mainoo gets on the ball and tries to progress the ball. I just think most of McTominay's criticisms that he received last season were due to the fact that he was getting the ball, but his passing wasn't great. He was giving it away, or he was, making rash tackles because he was trying to get the ball. I don't think it's ever been the case that we can say he hides. You can say that maybe he doesn't do the things you want him to do well enough. I don't think we can use the word hides. I feel like that's, for me, just a little bit too harsh. I think he's the very opposite. I think he's one of those who does try his hardest and does try and get out there. Whether he's given the ball or not, I don't know. But I know. I quite like the bloke. I don't know any major dramas when he plays. What can I say? Maybe this is a question for you, Dan. I can't. What number would he play, Dan? 9.5 or a 10?
I think 9.5 is pretty much where he's at, isn't it? Because you don't want to give him the ball, because he's not fantastic on the ball. But if you can get him in and around the box to get a shot away, he's scoring his goals and he's making a difference. I think if there's just some players in teams that they just can't play certain positions, no matter what you do, you can't. McTominay is not a midfielder. He's in that little space before a midfielder. I'm not expecting McTominay to get on the ball and play like Carrick and Pirlo. I'm expecting him to. I'm not. By the way, I'm not comparing him to Lampard when I say this, but that's more what I expect. That he's going to arrive late. He's going to get a shot off, but he's not going to be integral to the build-up. But he's not on Lampard's level anyway near. But he's good at getting the ball in the net and making a nuisance in the box. To be fair, it's a bit like Donny van den Beek. Donny played for Ajax, is what Scott McTominay is doing for Ten Hag now.
Fair enough. And to finish our little debate with NT, so sometimes he only completes around 10 passes in the game, just not good enough for me for a CM, and that's fine. I've got no problem with the way you worded that.
I think in fairness, NT, he does have a point to some degree. I do think at times with McTominay in the midfield, the game can pass him by, and the obvious criticism, he did deserve criticism against Newcastle. He only got the ball
31 passes,
which isn't good enough. It isn't, and I think at times he doesn't get into positions to receive the ball, and that's why I think yesterday, aside from his 2 goals, I did notice he was in positions to receive the ball more. I'd like to see more of that from McTominay. I don't think it was perfect. I don't think he'll ever be like Paul Scholes or someone like that to dictate the play, which is kind of what you need for United to win.
I don't think, to be honest, I'm amazed at the names that have been mentioned here. I've heard Paul Scholes, Frank Lampard, as if anyone on any channel ever has ever tried to say Scott McTominay, Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard.
No, Bob. Okay,
way more Darren Fletcher.
You can use Darren Fletcher then. So for example, but at least Darren Fletcher, if you compare, because they're 2 Scots, both capable of scoring the goal. But
I still, John, I've said they're 2 completely different players. Fletcher would drop back, he'd defend, he'd be on the ball.
He would. And
McTominay is just not his game.
I'm just thinking of someone closer to his level to some degree.
That's what I'm saying. I agree. That's the ability he's at. Is the sort of Darren Fletcher level. Solid and relatively dependable. He's not. Well,
I mean, in terms of, I'm not saying controlling the game as if it's his fault we don't control games. I'm just meaning as a team, we haven't been able to control games over a few years. That's where my argument is. I'm not saying McTominay should be that. He should be a Paul Scholes. I'm not saying that, but for me, he should. That's where my criticism is. He's not the only reason because of it. For me, as a United midfielder, you should be able to pass the ball, ask for the ball, and that kind of thing. That's where I'm critical of him. But he has his uses. He scores goals. He scores important goals. He's certainly a very good squad player to have. That's what I'm trying to say.
I don't like saying,
I do like it.
He does a few good things. He scores goals. As if that's not the entire point of the bloody game, to put the ball in the back of the net. But never mind. That's where we are. Just to point out here, McT and Fletch not even the same player. How do you know? You ever seen him in the same room? How do you know? Check it out. John Neville. He's been quiet for a while, so I want to bring you in on the old Scott McTominay discussion. And I'm going to just throw out a very simple question out there for you, which some people probably think is a little bit harsh, but Scott McTominay or Mason Mount?
What, as a starting, who would you start?
What would you be?
Well, it's got to be McTominay on evidence, hasn't it? I mean, I don't know if Mount's injured at the moment, is he? But the way McTominay's been getting us out of a hole the last few games or so. At times, it's very very difficult to leave him out. Really,
McTominay or Amrabat?
McTominay again, I think.
I mean, tough questions.
It's a tough question. But
I mean, he could have had, like I say,
McTominay or Eriksen?
McTominay.
And the point that I'm getting at here is that you talk about players, John, not just you personally, but lots of us talk about players being given the shirt when they earn it. Are we not in a situation where Scott McTominay in the lead up to Christmas has earned that shirt, really, to lead us up to Christmas and see how we get on?
Form has to matter. Form
Yeah.
has to matter to Manchester United.
I mean, he should have had, like people were saying, he should have scored straight after he scored the first goal, or not long after, and then he should have scored right after he scored the second goal. So he could have had 4 goals last night. It's
apparently Everton have beaten Newcastle 1-0. I'm supposed to get excited about this.
Yeah,
I think
good news.
Am I?
Everton.
Yay! Everton are winning.
It's only 10 minutes left.
It's all for Everton. No, that's good. It's nice. It's helpful for us in terms of our chase for the top 4, because we'd all love to have another group stage appearance next year, just to give us 6 more games to discuss as we're going through next season. But no, very good. So yeah, interestingly enough, John, you were off for a little bit there. What would yours have been? McTominay or Mount, and McTominay or Amrabat? Where would you be stood in terms of picking players if you were picking the week?
Well, for balance in the team, I'll go McTominay and Amrabat. But because
I didn't mean McTominay with Mount or McTominay with Amrabat. I've not worded that correctly for you. Sorry. What I meant is if you had to choose McTominay or Mount or McTominay or Amrabat, who would you pick?
I'd go McTominay over Mount based on form at the moment.
On the McTominay Amrabat question, because NT's gone, you can't play Scott without either.
I do agree with that.
And I agree with that, mainly due to the fact that you need to have 2 central midfielders. So
yeah,
you can't play Scott on his own. That's just
some teams don't.
The Wolves. Yeah, crazy people. That's it. But in a fantasy land, which is where we're living right now, because we're all sitting here feeling like there's a chance we're making the top 4. So let's just have that moment. Would you pick Scott McTominay or Amrabat? Just assume there's somebody good next to him.
I think you need. I think Amrabat. I call for strength in the midfield, to control the game. And I think Amrabat does that better than McTominay.
So you would pick Amrabat over McTominay?
Yeah.
How you, Dan?
The midfield balance.
McTominay or Amrabat?
Mine would be McTominay. I'm just a massive advocate of form has to matter. To be fair, Amrabat played really well yesterday. Probably the best game that he's played for us.
And in fairness, he played well in Galatasaray as well.
Yeah.
So.
I just think form, McTominay's he's made himself undroppable. Ten Hag's not dropping McTominay. He's probably
he's the best midfielder we've got at the moment.
He's probably the first name on the team sheet. Well, it's not. It's hard to say the best midfielder if that makes sense. But he's our best goal scorer, so he's not going to drop him. So he's definitely playing the next game, and he's probably playing against Bayern as well.
Which sort of leads me to my next point, which is how sad is it that we're in this situation right now, because when you start looking at, number of goals scored, as we've said, Scott McTominay sat there, we said quite happily with his 6. You've got Bruno Fernandes with 5. Then you see Marcus Rashford with 4 and Martial with 2. But it's really, really thin on the ground. And, I really feel for Højlund, because he's been purchased as a player that's had to come in and just be God's gift to football immediately, not having the opportunity to have the pressure taken off of him by a tried and tested striker next to him who can carry the burden and allow him to grow into his role. He's just literally been expected to be the goose that lays the golden egg, or the footballer that scores the golden goal. Remember those days? Oh, I hated the golden goal. But we're in a really tricky situation now where our strike force is not where it needs to be. Are we in that situation where we are literally going to have to start looking at the likes of Scott and Bruno? Do we potentially need to go for the single pivot to a degree and just sort of go, well, do you know what, on this occasion, perhaps we sort of go sort of a 4-1-4-1 formation with Højlund up there on his own, the 2 wingers, whether that be Anthony and Garnacho or whatever, just dropping back slightly so they can help to make a 3 in the midfield as well if need be, so that you've got the likes of Scott McTominay and you've got the likes of Bruno Fernandes being pushed forward more to have that opportunity to try and score the goals. Because if you take out Bruno Fernandes and you take out Scott McTominay, we're lower than Chelsea right now. It would be a really, really bad situation. So where do we stand on this one? What do we reckon? Because Martial, he's had a bit of a to-do with Ten Hag in the Newcastle game, wanting to have a bit of a whinge and a moan. Rashford's just not at it yet. He's got to play himself into some form. But where are we? Who wants to pick up on this one? I'm not going to pick a particular person. Who wants to start? How do we get past this goal-scoring conundrum that we are in?
Maybe put McTominay up front and put Højlund in midfield. Swap Højlund and McTominay. Put McTominay up front and Højlund in midfield. Try that.
Get him on the ball.
But no, it is a bit of a strange one how the forwards seem to be struggling for goals all the time. You can't really believe that Højlund's not had a tap in somewhere in the league. It's just bizarre, really. I mean, he played 10 games now, something like that in the league, and
he had a great shot against Chelsea, a really good one that the goalkeeper did well to turn around, to be fair, but
just not having any luck.
Yeah, is it? John, Dan, where do you sort of stand with the forward line?
I'm going to channel my inner Stu, and if I was Højlund, I'd have punched somebody by now, because the amount of runs this bloke makes, and I genuinely, a few games back, I asked myself, is he bringing enough to the team? Is he doing enough? And I started just concentrating on his runs and stuff like that. And he makes so many good runs. His drop-offs, he runs to the right places. And I tweeted yesterday, there was one where Garnacho's on the left. He might be somebody else, but I think it's Garnacho. And it's a 5-yard pass across the box, and it's a tap-in for him. And I think he shoots. And I would be losing my shit if I was him by now with some of these players, because it's not like he's not making the runs and he's not doing the right thing. He's doing it all perfectly. And some of yesterday where we wasted the chances were just not looking up. Just look up and play that ball.
He had a good shot in the opening 5 minutes where he made a good save. And Everton are winning 2-0, so fantastic news.
But they're out of the relegation zone.
Yes, and basically, I think that with Højlund, it's an interesting one, because I do think the way we approach the game, the way we press Chelsea, and I mentioned Anthony, he might have delivered too much. Yes, he did win the penalty, which we haven't spoken about yet, Barry. But but basically, it's...
You say that as if you need permission to bring a subject.
No, I'm joking.
I'm just here to facilitate conversation. You want to talk about a penalty, John? I've never stopped you before.
He did win us the penalty. And
there's more about that penalty,
I look at Ray Anthony, and Højlund and even Garnacho. The way we pressed Chelsea yesterday was particularly impressive. They have their uses of that. Now, I do agree, Højlund, but although there was that chance Garnacho had where he in the first half where he dragged it across, and I don't think Højlund was quite anticipating it. So I do think even if he's not expecting it, just be there just in case. So I do agree he had a shot, but there was one where he dragged across, and he wasn't quite in the right situation. About 2 yards further back from where he should have been. Otherwise, he would have had a tap in. And also, it's worth mentioning that the winning goal, that was a brilliant cross by Garnacho. And Højlund wasn't too far away.
I think McTominay towered over him, didn't he?
Those head home. Anthony, he's an interesting one because he did cross a few balls. I think at times he crosses, but he doesn't. He comes across as he doesn't always looking before he crosses it, so he can overhit it at times. So I can understand Højlund can get frustrated at times. I think we got to be better moving forwards. But I think the way we press and that, the chance will come. He just needs to make sure that he's in the right zone just in case it drops. And yes, it is frustrating, but there have been a couple of times where we have put where he ought to be, and he hasn't been there, just a yard or two behind. So I do think there's something he can learn because he is a young striker, and in my opinion, it's wrong that we should be relying on this 20-year-old for our goals and that kind of thing. I don't think he's ready for that. However, hopefully develops that predatory instinct, which we have seen the Champions League, but for some reason we've not seen it in the Premier League. So, but he is getting there. I've said this about some of our players. As soon as they get one, they'll get better. Garnacho got that goal at Everton and now he's in form. Anthony hasn't scored yet, but you can see he's starting to improve. Højlund just needs that goal in the Premier League, and I think he will score a few. He just needs to be patient, but he did have a good game last night in spite of not getting a goal. He was crucial for the press and he did a really good job, in fairness to him. So I think, yes, we all be better at putting the ball in where he can cause damage, but equally he's got to make sure that he's in that situation at all times, just in case, because that's where the best strikers will be. And I think that in time, he will develop that instinct.
So I think it's already there. I think he's already got it.
Sorry, Dan. All of that, and he still didn't mention whether he thought it was a penalty or not.
We had all of that. It's clearly a penalty. The ref gave it, Barry.
Because the ref said so. It must be. No, that's like reading on the internet. That is. Go on.
No, he did well, Anthony, in fairness to him.
No, I think Højlund's already there. This is why I'd be frustrated if I was him, because for every 10 times he makes the correct run and he runs to the right place and he is where he should be, 9 times they don't find him. So the one time that he's there, he's probably frustrated at the fact that he's probably not expecting it to be there, if that makes sense. That'll come with the link up. I thought, the most important thing yesterday, which this is the brilliant thing about football and how people see it so tactically different. It wasn't the press from the front three, because that's been there for weeks and weeks and weeks. It was left back, right back, and Fernandes was all pressing at the same time. We were so much higher up the pitch yesterday in terms of press. Even Maguire, there was, I'd say, probably 4 or 5 tackles on the halfway line, where if he doesn't make them, then they're in one-on-one. And it's about being a little bit braver, everybody. Let's be honest, we could do that for the next 3 games, win them all, 2 games, and then we're probably going to eat a bit of humble pie when we play Liverpool at Anfield. But it's the way it's got to be to move forward. You've got to try and be brave with that press.
By the way, NT is right. I've just seen in the comments that McTominay should have squared it to him.
Yeah, that's where he's got his left. Yeah.
But he should have squared it to him there.
He shoots on his left and he could just pass it across with his right.
Yeah, well, was he trying to shoot or was it just a fresh air eclair?
Fresh.
I think he was trying to shoot, but yeah, it was still bad.
Yeah.
There we
He
go.
missed the
Picking
penalty,
up
though.
Bruno.
He needs to
Saying-
come off penalties now. I'm joking.
Back on the penalties again. I did give you the chance. Bruno was possessed yesterday. He always runs, but yesterday he was unbelievable, says NT. He also mentions that Scott was on a hat trick, so we can let him off because we won, which is a point, but still, yes, I agree. If you get the opportunity,
Chelsea
you
have
should.
equalised, though.
So to keep John happy, Dan, was it a penalty? Yes or no?
Yes.
Not just because the ref gave it.
Yeah, it was definitely a penalty. I was really confused. I've seen the Sky coverage afterwards, and they were saying, "Oh, it's a penalty. It wasn't a penalty 25 years ago." That's a bit fucking ridiculous, isn't it? And why are we going back over 2 decades to say it wouldn't be a penalty? It's clearly a penalty.
Penalties. That's
Yeah.
not
Dan, do you notice? They were only saying that because it was given to United.
Yeah, it's making me fed up. But yeah, for me, that is exactly why VAR was brought in, because the ref missed it.
Yeah.
It was a clear stamp on his wall.
And slowly but surely we're starting to get a few decisions. Do you know?
But then so we miss it.
Neville, was it a pen for you?
Yeah, he stood on his foot clearly, didn't he? He was nowhere near getting the ball or anything. So
and
yeah.
Was that your thought as you were sat in the stands as well, looking down? Would you instantly penalty, or was it more of a hopeful shout at that point?
Well, I didn't think there was much of an appeal from many of our players, particularly, and I didn't really particularly see it myself, to be honest. I thought I wondered if at first it was what they was actually looking at. So it must have been, obviously the play must have moved on slightly and everybody's attention was elsewhere. But yeah, right decision in the end again.
Which is good news. And John, I'm going to assume that you believe it was a penalty.
Yeah. I mean, it did happen quickly. I can see why the ref missed it and everyone missed it. But I think because I saw when Anthony was holding his foot in the penalty area, I was kind of like, well, why would he be doing that kind of thing? You know, so I think when you look to the replay, it was a penalty. You know, I can see why the ref missed it, but it was a penalty.
Fair enough. I'm going to ask you all now for your player of the match suggestions. Who do you think was the standout? If you couldn't pick Scott McTominay, because I feel like that's the answer that people might give. If you couldn't pick McTominay, who would be your star player? I'm going to choose John first of all, because Neville, that is. Mainly because he was sat there and had the privilege of watching all of the players play, so he should have the best view to be able to come up with that one. And then we'll go to Dan, who was ever so slightly closer than John. So there we go. Go on, Mr. Neville. What do you reckon?
I think I'd give it Garnacho. I thought it was really good down the left. Saw a lot of him in the second half, because that's sort of side I sit where he was attacking in the second half. He seemed to be tireless going up and down the wing, and you know he was getting in behind a lot, putting crosses in, and obviously ended up putting in a great ball for the what was the winning goal in the end. So yeah, he gets my vote.
Really was a good ball, to be fair. Really was a good ball. Dan, who would you go for?
I'm going to put my bias aside, my very best, and say Harry Maguire. Obviously. No, I would agree with Garnacho, to be fair. I thought Garnacho was really, really good. Honestly, it's a really tough one, because I think between Maguire, Fernandes, Anthony, and Garnacho, they was all right up there. They just 1 to 11, they was all fantastic, and it was brilliant. But yeah, I think Garnacho. Yep, 3-0 Everton.
Now that 3 makes sense. I'm thinking, why is he sticking 3 fingers up at me? I don't know what he's trying to tell me. Does he want to go third? What's happening?
Yeah. I just caught the score out of the corner of my eye.
Well, there we go. 3-0 to Everton. Dave is saying to you, Johnny K, just say the SAF stand. John, just throwing that one out. You sound a bit too much like a SAF stand, isn't it? SAF stand. Yeah. But, yeah.
Well, Newcastle need a prayer now that Pope's injured. So sorry,
very
terrible,
Oh.
terrible. Get me off.
Very
But,
right enough for that one, I tell you.
no, but that's terrible. I apologise, everyone. For me, Amrabat, I thought he had a very good game in the midfield. And I think a lot of the play that we had, because we controlled the game for much of that game. I know Chelsea had their chances and that, but for me, I thought Amrabat was crucial. I personally think I always look at the midfield, how the midfield's going to play influences result more than anything. I know Garnacho, and he had involvement in the first goal as well, in fairness to him. So I can see why we'll go for that. He is impacting games from the start, but for me, Amrabat was solid. I think he won the ball 11 times when Chelsea had possession, 3 interceptions, that kind of thing. I think his performance was flawless. Even regardless of McTominay's 2 goals, for me, he was my personal man of the match. So
You
for me,
picked him over McTominay anyway.
I personally would have gone with Amrabat personally, because I think that he had a fundamental impact in the midfield. He controlled the game. I know McTominay got the 2 goals, don't get me wrong, and he won us the game. But I
I'm
think
laughing at John.
Amrabat was crucial in the way we controlled the game. Amrabat was crucial for that. So for me, that's why I will personally go with him. But no question, McTominay won the game with the 2 goals when he should have had 4 goals.
I'm not going to argue with it, but I'm looking at Dan's face at the moment, and I can't tell if he just looks absolutely dumbfounded at what you've just said, or if something's happened on the TV screen. So
No. I was just Sky. Do you know what Sky rated Amrabat for the game? Out of
5
10?
and 0.7.
A 5.
Yeah.
Which I thought was absolutely mad, to be fair. I thought he played well.
Yeah, he was superb. Yeah. I know we gave the ball away a couple of times. Chelsea did get in behind a couple of times, which was partly his fault in the first half. But I think second half, he was flawless. I thought it was a brilliant performance from him. And I think he was massively integral. I know McTominay got the 2 goals, but we should have had more than the 2 goals with all the chances and all the possession that we had. And I think Amrabat was critical for that, in my opinion. So, yeah.
There you go. Just out of interest, Dan, would you have picked McTominay if he was on the choice sheet?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and would you have done that, John, as well?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, McTominay, without a doubt.
Yeah. There we go. So John Commode and his anti-McTominay agenda here on I'm joking. Listen, big match, Bournemouth coming up. Are we feeling a bit more confident about it now? Because I spoke a bit the last time we was doing one of these midweek shows. We spoke about the running and the 10 games that were coming up before Christmas, and we said it all depends on where we are. Now, we've not had the greatest of results against Galatasaray. You know, it's a draw. It's kept us. We're in it just about. It's not the greatest place to be in, though. We then had the Newcastle game, and the Newcastle game turned out to be terrible. But yet here we are. I mean, that's what, like, you've not heard it from me, MZ, but yeah, that's basically where we seem to be right now. But we didn't necessarily expect, or some people might have expected, the 3 points off of Chelsea. So Bournemouth now, all of a sudden, Dan, things looking up, and we should hopefully be looking to get the 3 points there and put ourselves in that situation where, again, as we said before, 3 points against Liverpool, it kind of blows the title race sort of wide open.
If we beat Liverpool, we win, innit? If we somehow beat Liverpool at Anfield, Man United are winning the Premier League. It's happening. Like, it's just not going to happen. But it is what it is. I'm not worried about Bournemouth, but they're a better team than people give them credit for. And I am a little bit worried about Bournemouth because I feel like I've jinxed us because I went off full at Dominic Solanke for being one of the worst strikers in the Premier League. And it turns out he looks like he's quite good. And I don't half think it's going to come back and haunt me. So I'm hoping not. But no, it's one of them teams that we should beat, and it shouldn't be a massive struggle to beat them. but they are a very good side and they're really well drilled in what they do. So I just hope that our lot don't step up off the pedal. They can't go in thinking that, oh, it's Bournemouth, they're lower than us, we should beat them easy. They need to be on it like there was against Chelsea. They need to pin them back straight away and set the tone for the game in the first 10 minutes. It's Old Trafford again as well, so there's no excuses for it not to be done as well.
Well, Dan, just to quickly go back to what Mr. Talking Tennis has said here, he's put you got a 5, Amrabat. There were 4 players at 7.5 or above, and he was one of them. Have you had a fault with your eyes, or
No. Amrabat got rated a 5 on Sky. I don't know whether it was like an in-game team or just on the thingy, but it was all over because it was baffling. I found it baffling that he got a 5. Like during the ratings at the end, because I was thinking back, like, did he have a really bad game, or like did I miss something?
Maybe
or
Sky Cave was doing the ratings.
Possibly, but I can remember seeing it just after the end.
I think the other person who's questionable match ratings also got banned this week.
well, that's unfortunate, isn't it? And did you talk about that on Tuesday, by the way?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, okay, just making sure.
The media
Mr. Neville
being banned.
We got there in the end.
Yes.
Got there in the end. Mr. Neville, for you, Bournemouth, we've got Liverpool coming up. How are you feeling about the games? Are you a bit more chipper, a bit more cheerful, a bit more optimistic? Or is that just a dangerous place for us to sit as Man United fans, especially this close to Christmas?
Yeah, it seems to be the case, doesn't it? As soon as we sort of get a bit of confidence and think we've sort of sussed the job out, it seems to come back to haunt us. But like Dan says, Bournemouth have picked up quite a lot of points recently. They were sort of rock bottom at the start of the season, but they seem to have turned it around the last few weeks. So we will need to be on our mettle again. I think there'll be another one of them where they're very difficult to break down. So it'll have to be a case of being patient, and we'll have to play well, and it might be another McTominay late show again, something like that. But it'd be nice to get the win and get to 30 points before we go to Anfield next week.
Absolutely. Poor old John at Talking Tennis here is absolutely gobsmacked there. Lindelof with a 7. I don't know if he thinks he should have been less.
I was just saying that. Lindelof 7, Amrabat 5.
Yeah, they're the ratings from the weekend. From the Chelsea game that Sky put out, and I honestly was dumbfounded looking at it. How Maguire and Lindelof got the same rating when one of them got hooked at half time is incredible.
Well, there you go.
Bring back James Cooper.
John, for you, like we said, Bournemouth and Liverpool coming up. What are your feelings? Are you feeling positive, optimistic, looking good, top four's a cert? Or are you sitting there thinking we could be holding hands with Chelsea at the end of the season? Where's the optimism levels right now?
I think we'll beat Bournemouth, then lose at Anfield. That's just my theory. But I think that's a big win last night. And I know Chelsea aren't the level that we expect them to be, but it's still a big win. Man United, Chelsea is still an important game. And, you look at people like Paul Merson saying, I can't see Chelsea losing this game. We were destined to lose last night. And we actually put in a performance and won to the shock of everyone except me. But having said that, though, I think we will beat Bournemouth. I mean, it's worth noting that Bournemouth, I was looking at the form table, and they've won 4 out of 6. In that run, they've beaten Newcastle 2-0. They beat Palace away 2-0 last night. I mean, that's a good result, 2-0 away at Palace. And in that run. They've lost 6-1 at City, but the other game they didn't win was 2-2 against Villa. So they are in form. So I agree with Dan and John that you can't take them for granted. But that being said, we are at home. I think we did show last night that we did bounce back. I personally think Ten Hag will pick the same team, and I would expect to get a result. And so we'll come on to match predictions shortly. But for me, I'm confident we can get a result. And I think it's big. I know we might lose at Anfield, and no doubt if we do, that Ten Hag's job will be under pressure and all that. But if we beat Chelsea, if we win tomorrow, I personally think that Ten Hag is safe past Christmas, personally. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But I think we played well last night, and I think we'll take that form into Bournemouth.
Couldn't agree with NT more here. Just show some desire versus Liverpool. Don't capitulate like last time. If we get a draw or a close game loss, it's an improvement, a win, and it's pants off time. What you do in the privacy of your own house, go for it. I wouldn't recommend doing that out on the streets. But yeah, good stuff indeed. We are going to go round for score predictions. So we'll start with Dan and then just put yourself around. And if you feel like going for some scorers as well, feel free.
I'm going to go for 3-1.
I was going to go with that.
And you can still go for it. I've not like stole it. I fancy Højlund to score. I'm going to say it every week.
That's always one that you go with.
Yeah, I'm going to say it every week now. I think he'll get his goal. I think Garnacho will get a goal as well. And then I'm hoping it's comfortable, but it's never comfortable, is it?
No. I think it's going to be another tight one. I'll go 1-0 McTominay. I think it's going to be another one of those games.
Yeah, McTominay for Ballon d'Or with this form. I'm telling you, it's happening.
Player of the month, first of all. But no, I'm gonna go with Dan. I'm gonna go with 3-1, and I think Garnacho will get the first goal, and no doubt the overrated, incompetent Scott McTominay will prove me wrong again, and he'll bag another one. No, I might as well continue with slating because he'll always prove me wrong, which is to our benefit.
I hope it carries on. Can I just say as well? Can you imagine if McTominay?
I do like McTominay, by the way. I'm not.
Can you imagine if he does win Player of the Month, and the last two players of the months end up being Maguire and McTominay?
There's 7 Premier League games this month, so if he does,
that would be that'd be heaven.
Imagine if he scored like 5 goals and it included Anfield or something. You know,
winner in Anfield.
Would be quite something. John at Talking Tennis said we're going to win 2-1 on Saturday. David also gone 2-1. NT says 3-1 is a good shout, but he's going 2-1 with a Højlund brace. Hopefully that's goals and not one on his knees.
NT, you're letting me down now. Yeah, with McTominay. Sure, you should back him to score.
There you see. I'm not sure. I'm not convinced we'll concede. I'm going to go 3-0. And that is definitely more optimism than belief. But he's got to keep a clean sheet at some point, hasn't he, Mr. Onana? It's literally the start of his name to have the big O. So that's what we are hoping for. I was going to take a little look. I couldn't find our little league predictions, though, Dan. I'm going to see if I can dig those out, the ones that we did at the very beginning of the season, and sort of have a little mid-season review and see whereabouts we are in terms of those, but I don't have them right now, so I'm going to try and dig those out for our next show. But it is quite interesting up there at the moment, isn't it? Aston Villa jumping in to the top 4 as well, and so that's really my last sort of question, which is, top 4 is very much open for just about anyone at the moment. But do we feel that Villa might go a bit Spursy and drop it down, or are they one that we really need to look out for this season? in the top 4 finish? That's my last little question, really. So, John Kay, we'll let you kick off on this one.
I think we'll get top 4.
Worried about Villa at all?
I think with Villa, they obviously have done very well, and they had a brilliant result against City last night. But it's also worth noting, I don't think Villa played the main. I mean, they haven't played as many like the top 6 and that kind of thing. So, and they've got Arsenal this weekend, so they are no doubt in form. They do play Thursday nights. I think they're the most informed team in the league since the September international break. So you can't take them for granted. However, there's usually always a team that outperform everyone. Exceed expectation. The first half of the season might slightly fade off, because if they're going to progress in the I think it's the it's not the Europa League, it's what's that competition, Conference League, they're in that. I think usually when you play Thursday nights, eventually at some point in the season it gets to the point where you have to prioritize one or the other. I do think Villa will eventually have to prioritize that thing. So while they are banging form, no question about them, they've got to come to Old Trafford at Boxing Day. Boxing Day, and I think that and they are good at home, especially. You got to treat them with respect. But for me, I can't see them finishing top 4. I think they might finish in 5th or 6th place, maybe. I can see that potentially, but I do think that eventually they will. They were around this position in the treble season, actually, ironically, and then they just faded towards the end a little. So, but I do think that they've done very well, and City will get better at some point, no question. And then the question is about Arsenal, Liverpool as well. I do worry about Liverpool because they're kind of not being spoken about for the title, which is a bit worrying because they are picking up results. But for me, I do think we'll get in the top 4. I think a lot of it depends on what happens what the result by Munich game is and what happens to us after that game.
Speaking about top 4, West Ham have just scored. It's 2-1.
Ooh, happy days.
Let's
see how that carries on. NT says, really glad Villa are doing so well as it highlights the level of Slippy G's management. So that's cheered him right up. And of course, John Talking Tennis has said Arsenal's are super vulnerable on Tuesday. Be 7 points between all of us.
They were vulnerable, but they got the job done. We beat Luton 1-0 and Liverpool drew there. And City have to go. So, they are vulnerable, but they got the job done. And I think you'll learn a lot about Arsenal because they got Villa on Sunday, I think, away. And they've also got to go to Anfield before Christmas. I think those 2 games will learn a lot about Arsenal, personally.
That's why he's used the conjunction if. If they had. Which is good. And he's just a little bit late on that one, on the feed coming through, I'm afraid, there. But he's been a very good Cammy substitute so far this evening. John Neville, are you worried about Villa at all? Because you got Unai Emery there. He's been a bit of a thorn in our side before. Could potentially be a thorn in our side on Boxing Day. Perhaps a reason not to watch the football if we don't want to be spoiling our Boxing Day sherries and turkey sandwiches.
Yeah, apparently they really played City off the park last night. I think I heard on the radio on the way back, City only had 2 shots all game.
Yeah.
And
I know they didn't have a shot after the 11th minute.
Yeah, so I know City have got a few key players out, but yeah, they seem to be. Emery seems to have really got them playing well, Villa. So I think they'll be. I think they'll be up there. I think definitely top 6, maybe. Still kicking around top 4 as well. So yeah, it'll be interesting when we play them on Boxing Day. That will be a big game. That will, I think.
Certainly will. Dan, last word to you tonight. Anything you would add to what's just been said?
I'm not. It's a weird one with the top four for me. I predicted us to finish fourth because I thought we overachieved last year. I'm just not looking at any other team. We won't finish in the top four until our away performances get better against the top 8 teams. If they stay the same as they are, there's not a chance we finish in that top 4. We'll finish 6th. So until we address our away form against some of these better teams, we'll be lucky to be in touching distance after Christmas. We need to stay in touching distance as long as we can, but that away form is a massive concern. So pessimistic, I know, but until we sort our away form out, I'm not convinced we would finish in the top 4. We would have to see a really big uptick.
There you go. That is the final word on the show tonight. Well, there we go. So lots discussed, lots spoken about. We've had a good old convo, spoken about everything to do with Chelsea. We've been positive, we've been negative, we've been everything in between. We've had the joys of talking about Super Scott McTominay, the greatest player to lace a football boot this week. And we have also managed to speak, of course, about the forwards, about the defence, about everything that's going on at United, because that's what we are here for. Big shout out to the top trio for sure that were in the comments today. John at Talking Tennis, lovely to see you again. Hope to get you on a show again sometime soon. NT and Dave, of course, lovely little double out there, Statler and Waldorf-esque, I would say, from the rafters. So cheers to you guys too. We are, as we mentioned, playing Bournemouth. I believe that's on Saturday, isn't it?
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. I thought it was when I was looking
10
before.
o'clock for me.
10 o'clock to you, John. Yes, you have to set your alarm. I'm sure you'll be on sausage duty again.
No, I'll be up early Saturday. My
Will
wife's got training to do, so training for teaching and that. So I'll be up early.
Good stuff. Well, NT, you are perfectly welcome for the stream and for the chat. It's brilliant as ever, like I say, to have you all in. We'll look forward to seeing you probably on Saturday night for another episode, would you believe? That'll be 3 in 6 days, which we really quite some, or 3 in less than that, 4 days, which is quite cool. So good stuff. Well done, everybody. Cheers for having you all on, and we will see you soon.